Welcome to Writing and Influence, the podcast where words meet impact. I'm your host, Elaine Acker, and I believe that publishing, whether it's a book, a blog, or even a simple social post, has the power to amplify your influence and change lives. Your words have power. Let's start writing with purpose. Welcome again, everybody. Today's episode is one that I have been looking forward to. Of course, I look forward to all of them. But today we're talking to someone who has changed the way the world thinks about the word no. Now, Andrea Waltz and her husband, Richard Fenton, are the powerhouse duo behind the best-selling classic, which is Go for No. And their brand new follow-up is Go for No, the sequel. Their work has inspired thousands of entrepreneurs, sales professionals, and leaders to stop fearing rejection and start chasing it, because every single no that you get is the thing that gets you closer to the yes. And if you're heading to Sell Well in Houston in September, you are in for a treat because they'll be there live on stage sharing their mix of storytelling and strategy. And it's the kind of wisdom that you're going to carry with you long after the event. So in today's conversation, we're going to dive into the new book, what it means to keep growing after those decades of success, and how the Go for No philosophy is going to apply far beyond sales and get into life and leadership and your own confidence. So, Andrea, thank you so much for being here with me today.
Absolutely, Elaine. I'm so grateful to be able to talk to you today.
Now, you and Richard speak as a pair often. And so, as I mentioned, you're going to be speaking at the Sell Well conference in Houston. So tell me, what is it? Because I always think about, whenever I'm thinking about books in particular, but of course also speaking things, what is it that you're hoping audiences can take away from your keynotes?
Well, I think the bottom line for what Go for No is all about is having the courage to ask. That is ultimately, I think a lot of people hear the phrase Go for No and they think, what on earth does that mean? Who wants to hear no? And a lot of people confuse it with saying no, right? Which is such an important skill today, being able to say no and create those boundaries and all. Actually, no, Go for No is all about being willing and wanting to grow yourself, whether your business, the things that you want to accomplish in life, and understanding that a lot of times that requires that you ask for things, whether you're fundraising and you're asking for money, you're asking for favors, you're asking for help, you want to meet somebody new, connections. And so we tend to shut ourselves down from doing the asking because it's uncomfortable. A lot of us grew up in a society or a family where it was kind of like, stay quiet. And so it's like, if you're going to get something, like, don't be greedy, it will be given to you, and don't go out and push people and be aggressive. So we carry a lot of baggage around asking. And that's really what Go for No is all about. Yeah, we really do.
Well, you know what's funny? I don't know if you've ever heard this. I heard Go for No described as a cult classic. Have you ever heard your book, the original one, described that way?
Yes, I have.
I always wanted to have a cult classic.
Right? I know. I love that. And gosh, Elaine, we've been around for so long. This book has become a little bit of a classic, and sadly, it ages and dates me, but I'm okay with it.
Well, what I was curious about was what made now the right time for the sequel?
Oh, right. So, well, first of all, we always struggled with, now let me kind of set the stage. Go for No is a parable about a guy who wakes up in a house one morning. He's an average salesperson. He works in the world of copier sales, which, for those of you who are young and don't know, a copy machine was something that you put a piece of paper on, pressed a button, and it would make a copy. I don't know if we do that these days anymore. And so he's this average salesperson. He goes to bed one night. He wakes up the next morning in a house beautiful house, and he discovers that he has somehow magically traveled 10 years in the future. And he's in a house that belongs to a wildly successful 10 years in the future version of him. And he meets his other self, and together they kind of figure out what's going on. What's the mystery? How does the future him become so successful? And actually it was a situation that happened while they were selling suits for a living, and learned to not stop when you heard the word no. And in this case, it was a retail sales interaction. And so kind of the point of that scenario was that only the customer should end the sale, not the salesperson. That's what he learns in this interaction. So the story is all about the fact that hearing no is a positive, and that failure, as we think about getting a no as a failure, and reframing the word failure and what failures really mean, and the fact that when you get a no, you aren't in fact failing, or at least you're failing in the right way. So it's a short fable, and I think for the sequel, we were just never really sure how we wanted to approach the story, because the story is really important to teaching the lessons. And I think as Richard and I kind of talked about it, at 20 years, we were like, oh, it's the 20th anniversary. Well, now it was the 25th anniversary. And so the pressure was on. And I said, we need to do this. And I told Richard, because he's the creative genius of the two of us, you need to come up with a story, a story that we can. And then what we did, Elaine, was once we had the story kind of laid out, and by the way, what we did was we took our main character and we gave him a 20-year-old daughter. So the story is all focused around her and what her go for no journey is. And then as far as the lessons, we decided to tackle all the little things that had come up over the years that we knew that we didn't tackle in the first book. All of the issues that people had, all of the things like kind of like, what would you say now if you could go back and write the book? So we were able to address all of those things.
Well, and so a couple of things I really loved about that. So first of all, my very first sales training ever in the world was the copier technique. So a major brand name copy company had a very specific training, and that was the very first training I learned. And so what I think I love about your book is that I can put it in the context of that very first sales training I had, but look at how well your book has aged over time to be super relevant to the changes that have taken place in how we sell and how we interact with each other, because a lot's changed in the last 25 years. So.
Yeah. Well, you're so right. And it does require, it's kind of funny you bring this up. So we, part of our marketing effort with our book is, we'll send out a review copy to a vice president of sales or somebody for a team if they're thinking about having us speak, or if we want to speak for the group or whatever. And most people can read it and understand the principles, even though the story takes place, it's old school, right? There's no cell phones. Everything's kind of like you can feel that it's not in the dark ages, but you can feel it's older. So it's really about the principles. Every now and then someone takes it very literally and they're like, this is really old. And I'm like, let's not get down in the weeds about the fact that, he's driving a car from 1990. Like, can we just focus on the principles, which is really
human psychology? Yes.
Yes, exactly. Yeah. And that's, I think, most books that are evergreen, right? And I know you do, cookbooks, right?
We do cookbooks, we do business books, we do a number of books, but I'm going to dig into the book publishing side of it with you here in a minute, because I know you're also going to be, giving people some advice that sell well. So I want to hear more about how that publishing process went for you as well, and kind of that storytelling, how you're leveraging the power of storytelling in this book.
Yeah. So, the publishing journey, came about because back in the day, we just decided that we weren't going to try to go find a traditional publisher. This was way before Amazon print on demand. So we just learned the process of packaging our own book. And Elaine made literally every mistake humanly possible that you could make packaging this book. I mean, it was, first of all, the cover was a disaster. We ended up changing it a few years later. And it was probably the single biggest reason why the book didn't sell for the first 5 years. I mean, just didn't sell. And that's why it's so important to get, if you have a book in you, if you have a story, it's so important to get somebody who knows what they're doing. I help, like somebody who's been through the process, could not give that advice more, because there is a way to do it. And I see sometimes people will fall in love with like an image, and they'll want this certain image on the cover of their book. And I think like, no, you can't. You can't trust me on this. And we're kind of been reluctant publishers over the years, in that it's not really a skill set, but I've ended up developing the skill set of how to, for us, package short books. So we've helped several other people write and publish what we call short books, which is anything on 100 pages or less, kind of in that sweet spot. And I think that today's readers, they want their problems solved. We want to help them consume books in an easy fashion. And so for us, it's all about finding those niche topics that, right? And then blowing that up into a short book. And then if you want to do another book, if you have more to say, do another book, have a whole series, right?
I love all of that advice. And so I'll just real quickly, I'll clarify what we do. So we're a hybrid publisher, and we try to do exactly what you're trying to do. And I will echo, just go get, it doesn't have to be us. I mean, it could be you, it could be anybody. Go get some help, because you don't have to get around that learning curve all by yourself. There are some very easy pathways. So your job is to channel your own unique perspective and experiences and knowledge and put that into a book where other people can benefit from it. And your job is not to learn every nut and bolt that's required in the production and publishing process. So yes, go get some help, because it just doesn't have to be that hard.
No, it doesn't.
End rant.
Yes, I'm with you.
So on the storytelling site, so I have to tell you this. I am starting next Monday. I will be, this will air in a couple of weeks, but as of next Monday, I am teaching English at Panola College in Northeast Texas and Carthage. So I was particularly interested in this book because of the twist and the characters and having the young person, because I think so many of our students now struggle for that resilience and that practice and learning what it's like to deal with the word no, and how do you just keep going. So can you tell us a little bit more about that? Talk about the new character, what happens, and what advice you have for all young people.
Yeah, absolutely. Well, and that was the fun thing with the sequel, is we got to see the world through our new main character's eyes, who's Cassidy. She is just graduated from college. Her father is from our original Go for No book. So he's this Go for No guy. And he decides that feels very lost, not sure what she wants to do. And he's kind of encouraging her, like, well, go into sales, and here you can start selling me, and let me show you how it's done. And so they go through these scenarios of, and she says, Dad, I can't sell. Like, I can't do this. This is horrible. Sales is sleazy. And so he has to kind of reframe all of these things for her. And then the real turning point in the story for her, and we realized we had to have, obviously, with any good story, there's got to be a problem, right? and
that's where it gets interesting.
That's where it gets interesting. So for us, the problem becomes that Eric has put himself way out on a limb financially to try to raise money to rehab this golf course, which is, as it is, it was his kind of secret lifelong dream to take the golf course that he used to play at all the time 25 years earlier, and he wants to own it and refurbish it and put a hotel and all this stuff. And so he puts his entire life savings into this. And now he needs to start raising money, and he's enlisted Cassidy, like, Cassidy, you can help me with this. And they are failing, and they're getting nowhere, and they're hearing lots of no's. And then the kind of, I don't think it's so much of a spoiler alert, but Cassie has this moment where she sees an opportunity and she takes it. And that, I think, is the really big takeaway that we wanted to have for young people, which is stop talking yourself out of opportunities.
Yeah.
Stop saying no to yourself. That was one of the big ones.
Mm-hmm.
And this in the book is what we call a go for no moment. And I think we all have those in life where it's the moment where you could go approach somebody. Maybe it's go to a teacher and ask for, help on something. Maybe it's whatever it is, ask a coach for one more chance to play in the game. It's those go for no moments. And it's one thing to, and this really is the kind of the crux of go for no. It's one thing to get that no. And that's okay, because at least you go to bed at night, your head hits a pillow and you think, I gave it my best shot. I tried. But you don't want your head hitting the pillow thinking, I wonder what would have happened if I had just gone up and asked. And that's what we want people to do, is execute more on those asks. So we really, in the story, we really dug into Cassidy's vulnerabilities. We showed her making a list of all of her faulty beliefs and all the stuff that she was working on. And she tells her dad, like, I can't believe all the stuff I'm carrying around. It's crazy. She says, I don't know how I got all these beliefs.
Yeah.
But, I have to get over them. And so the two things this is two characters, both Eric from the previous book and Cassidy in this one. The one thing I think that Richard and I have done right, and I guess we just kind of knew this intuitively, was we want to make our characters really relatable, really to where people say, I think that same thing. I've been in that same place. I have all those same experience. So that as we're taking them through the journey, they almost become the character and see themselves in that character, so that at the end, when we have the character do something courageous, they kind of get pulled through with that and think, I could see myself doing that too. I could do that. So that ultimately that's what we want, is we want that behavior change. But it starts with really having them identify with the character. If you make a character too successful, too fabulous, people just go like, oh, that's them, but that's not me.
Yes. And I'm thinking about the people who hold. So I'm shifting back to publishing for a second, because you just made me think about the people who hold back from wanting to. They may have this idea in their head that they want to publish a book, but they talk themselves out of it. They say, well, it's already all been done, or no, it'll take too long, or who would want to read that? And that's one of the hurdles I see people trying to overcome when they've got a great idea, but they're feeling stuck and they're talking themselves out of it. So what advice do you have for those people when they're talking themselves out of this golden opportunity that might be writing a book?
Yeah, that's a tough one. And I do this thing called a 21-day go for no challenge, where for 21 days, we try to go for no, right? We set goals for the number of no's we're going to hear, and people are supposed to go out and then come back a week later and share what they did in their business or their life. And I think what it comes down to, Elaine, is perfectionism. And especially with a book, people see the big authors, and it's like, you can't compare yourself to Stephen King and the people
exactly,
right? That's not what this is about. And no one has written your unique book. So I think for us, the way we deal with it is, and it sounds crazy, but we really try to get people to reframe the way they see failure, and to make the idea of, hey, if you get a no, if you do something or create something and you put it out there and nobody comments on it or sees it, your art, as it were, that's not the reason to not create it. The reason is to fall in love with the process, not the end result. And so I think changing how people view failure and success, that writing the book is the success, not what your perceived outcome is, that's the real success, and to get rid of that perfectionism. So, one of the things I tell people is don't overcome, if you just want to get the material out, start writing a series of questions that you would like to address in your book, and then address those questions. Because it's so much easier, I think, for people to answer questions than it is to start with a blank, right, pad of paper and just say, okay, step one. It's why do people have this issue? What has your experience been? What have you seen? What are the 3 biggest mistakes people make regarding this topic? And if you can just start getting that out, then before you know it, you've got something that looks like a book, and then you just need somebody to massage it into something that works, right?
Well, and I'm going to argue that you write the book because you want that sense of accomplishment, and because you don't know what happens because you wrote it. And there is no way to know that in advance, because I'm betting a lot of things happened after y'all wrote that book that you didn't expect, couldn't have anticipated, but you had to take that first step. Are there any stories like that you can think of?
Oh my gosh, writing the book was, I think it's a complete life-changing experience. It certainly changed our lives from a work standpoint. And one of the things that we decided, the reason why we wrote the book in the first place, was we decided that the best way to get our message out and to have people hire us for speaking engagements was to have this long business card that was really entertaining and informational, where somebody would read it and go, oh, these 2 would be great to have at my sales meeting. That was our goal. But I think you're so right to your point. There's nothing better than getting your ideas out and then packaging them in a way that somebody could read it 3 years from now, 30 years from now, and it's brand new to them. And so your ideas and your thoughts live on. It's just a really cool thing, and it's still as ultimately as easy as it is to do. And I don't mean easy in the writing. I mean easy in the ultimately. It's pretty easy to put a book physically together these days with all the tools. Unlike 20 years ago, there's really no excuse not to do it. And so you've got to get over that perfectionism and that belief that you're not good enough and all of those things, because it's life-changing to have one. And then you get to be in the really fun club, which is the author club.
Well, tell me, what is one thing everybody could start doing today, tomorrow, that sort of helps them step into that go for no philosophy?
I think the easiest, best thing to do is to create a no awareness, and kind of reverse engineer what you want to accomplish. Like, what's the big goal that you're working towards right now? It could be something, if you're a salesperson, it could be like, hey, I need to close 3 sales, this month, next month. Or you have a big goal, like, I want to speak on stages. I want to write this book. And
I want to graduate.
I want to graduate. What do you need to do? What things do you need to ask? What no's might be holding you back from doing those things, getting the help, getting the resources? And who do you need to ask in that process? And then reverse engineer it and create that no awareness of, okay, here's what I need to do. Here's who I need to ask, so that you stop giving yourself the no. Right? It's, again, we want to be willing to accept no as part of the process. And so we've got to be willing to hear that no, take on that no as the burden of getting to yes. And when we do that, that's where the yeses are hiding. Instead of, remember, your head hitting the pillow and regretting and saying, wow, if only I had asked. Because I'm telling you this, the secret is, when you see other people getting ahead, when you see them graduating, when you see them getting awards, when you see people doing things, somewhere along the way, they made a choice to just play differently, right? They made a choice to put themselves out there, to work a little bit harder, to stay a little bit longer. And so that is what it's all about. I mean, they just made that choice and they did it. I think one of my favorite quotes is, I think a guy named Orrin Woodward said this. He said, it's very simple. There's 3 steps. Decide what you want. Decide what the price is, right? What is it going to cost? What's the price? And then pay the price. So part of paying the price, as in our world, in the Go for No world, is to be willing to ask and hear no along the way.
And then ask again.
And then ask again, because sometimes when you ask again, that's where the yes is hiding.
That's right. So where can people find you? Where do they follow you? How do they get more of all this lovely wisdom?
Well, I encourage people to go to goforno.com and take our fun no quotient quiz. It's an easy 10 or 12, I can't even remember now, question quiz. I should remember. I spent enough time developing it, where you answer questions related to your thoughts, feelings about failure, success, rejection. And then I break down your answers and show you how to have a better Go for No mindset. So that's probably the best, and it's totally free. So that's the best, I think, most fun way to start.
Awesome. Thank you so much. We will make sure people know where to find that. We'll link it in the show notes. And I appreciate you being here, sharing all your wisdom and stories, and the reminder that no is actually a stepping stone, not the end of a journey. And for anybody who's listening, if this conversation sparked a little something in you, then you should go grab Go for No, the sequel. And if you can, come to Sell Well and listen to Andrea and Richard speaking live. I'll make sure that you can find that in the show notes as well, because it's time to embrace the word no in a whole new way, because it gets us that much closer to the yes. So thank you again, Andrea.
Thanks, Elaine.